Hi, I'm Will Harris, the Flame Family Product Manager. I'm here with Stefan Galliot from a52. How are you doing?
Hi, Will. Very good, thank you.
This is the second of essentially a three-part series that we're doing with you around Flame as a CGI application. That's an interesting way to think of Flame. We know that you are one of the masters in PBS and PBR lighting, rendering of 3D scenes. So it's going to be pretty cool to actually see how you apply that.
Cool, yeah.
This HP commercial we want to talk about is actually using the techniques in a very real way, right? So using PBS and PBR shading and rendering technology in a very applied way. Could you tell us a bit about this project and how you got to choose to use your techniques?
Yes. So we had that HP spot directed by Lancer Car, where we needed to change on that one shot. They didn't like the building. They felt like the design and the textures, they didn't like that. So we needed to change that. So the few options were, I think we didn't really have CG in the budget or the schedule or the time frame. So the options were to have a matte painter do something, or we would start with going outside, find a building, shoot a building, and do it in a pure 2D way. Right. And from that, it seemed that we've had enough experience playing with texturing and lighting to get it to a photoreal thing where we could do building replacement, or we had talked about this already. Set extensions and texture replacements and cleanup and all this. So use all what we've been through, explored, and in production, in a real commercial workflow. So we gave it a try. We started to play with textures, to play with placement. They had the building originally filling the frame and then not filling the frame and then higher and then lower. So that gave us a lot of flexibility in terms of placement without having to redo a matte painting with different perspective. So that helped tremendously. A much quicker workaround, much quicker process.
So some of the challenges indeed would be some of the things that we've seen you solve with physical rendering, like reflections or the way textures react to light.
Yeah, that's a lock-off. So you don't have so many changes in the lighting. The lighting is there. So that part was finding the proper IBL, something that would work with this. We didn't go out and shoot one specific one, but there are enough out there, and we have our library at a52 to pick from. So,
but it has to look real. And it has to look photoreal.
Yeah, photoreal, where you wouldn't notice a classic commercial workflow. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see the steps of how you get that. Cool. So go ahead and talk us through.
All right. First thing, of course, was to get a model in there. Okay. These are pretty simple rectangles or cubes or deformed, and then started to play with substance textures from the Flame library, and then playing with this, starting to get the placement right, and just to match the directions, and then started to play with a few variances of textures. So that's the plate here. That's straight out of action because for some reason how it's been built, the gray, the darkness happens after that, but that's the final result. But before that, we did a few variations, and I showed that to the creatives.
So you started with the brick wall. They didn't like the brick. They wanted more like a concrete.
Yes, and then if we look at here, how the top part of it, they didn't like that. They wanted something simpler. They didn't like the bricks. Yeah, started with a few textures. Some of the substances will give you more cracks, and some have more dirt, and some have more, different concrete rendering. And
so it's creative control.
Yeah,
you don't have to just go photograph a piece of concrete. You can actually kind of change the age, change the amount of damage or sort of scuffs on it and that kind of stuff.
Completely. So I did a few versions, 3 variations around this, and then showed that, and then that's where it became even more interesting, where we started to tweak this together with Patrick Murphy, who was leading that job, and as you can see, if you turn one off, turn a texture off, and look at the final results, you see what you're going to get, and that is exactly what's going to be in the timeline. That's what's going to be presented and delivered. So any tweak you do here, if I put it back on and we don't want so much of it and we want just a little bit, well, that, or the other way, that's basically what you're going to get. So once you like something, the amount of leaks under, or they green, or they're large, or they everything, every aspect of it, once you're happy with it, what you just looked at is what's going to be in the timeline.
So if you were to like zoom way in on that for us so we can start to see some of the variations that you could sort of get interactively, is what kind of things so you could change?
So from the substances themselves, this one, you've got the age, which is mostly the cracks that are here. Okay. And then there's transparency. This one is full on, that's the base one, the base texture. And we have another one here that is a little different, granite. If you turn it off and on, you start to see the smaller grainy texture, a different pattern on it. And then it's, again, the diffuse can have, that's what we looked at earlier, some transparency, and then from the substance itself, same thing here.
So you're layering up different substances to get the overall look.
Yes, and then some leaks there, a few different ones. Okay. So that is using just to diffuse a decal mixed on. That's not a substance texture.
An actual regular image at that point.
A regular image with an alpha
blended in.
That is blended in. So the mix of traditional that will give you, this, and then of course that can be before if we're on layer 8, and layer 8 probably has few things color correct to make it fit in. So that's the regular traditional mixed with the 3D, because then of course
it's a 3D object where you've actually built the edge, the rim of the wall as well, huh? And
yes.
ambient occlusion underneath, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there is. I think there are 2 sets
That's cool.
of ambient occlusion to get that right, and then the output. I think there is an output of the AO somewhere. So playing with the textures and also the placement.
This seems like a really interesting way to use those CG procedural textures to look very real.
Yes, yes. I think at that point you get really enough details for the texture. You can get pretty close, and that's not cranked up as far as textures resolution. That's probably 2K resolution. You could go 4K.
Right.
So yeah. The other part is that at some point they wanted to see a version where the building was going all the way, if I zoom out just a little bit, would go all the way to the other side of the frame, would fill in the entire frame. So that would require, well, extended the matte painting that was done, or change the perspective, because the lines up there on the top part would change a little. So that's a lock-off. But if you had also a moving camera, then same thing, you would have responsiveness. And that again, once you have this, that's the final. That's if we go back, and then we went back, so we that final was approved with the first version, because we could tweak it, see the final result without thinking, we want it to look like this, give directions to an artist, give directions to, and hopefully you understand each other's enough so that their first version is what you were expecting, as far as the texture is a little little bit like this and has more cracks or less cracks, but then it's you got to go through the whole process again, and that might be a day or half a day. Where they're here, if you move one thing, it's a few seconds, so you get instant results.
It really solves the sort of set extension problem without having to go back and do new mats or extra sized mats. And like you said, you could final it on version 1 because it's what you see is what you get.
Yeah. So if you're happy with it, there's a chance. If you did if you did well, there's a chance that others gonna like it. So, and that's what happened. So that was a really efficient. And then we talked about it. We debriefed that and see how, if we had to do it another way, if we had to do it with CG, with going out, take a photo, do this, do that, and there was no comparison to that. Not just experience, but the efficiency, how long it took to get to, because that was pretty fast to get to this.
Yeah, doesn't feel like you're doing CG modeling. It feels like you're just doing compositing, and it's generating the sources as it goes, huh?
Exactly, yeah.
We did a deep dive on actual working with PBS materials and then that physical shading and rendering. This is really just a use of it, right, in a real job. Where your experimentation, your understanding of how to use lighting of 3D objects actually became a very practical solution.
Yeah, exactly. That's grounded. So there's the creative side, the experiment side, the R&D side, and then that's how and when do you use some of it, or all of it, or some of it in real world. For instance, in my case, commercial work, but that can apply to any form. How does this apply to everyday's work as far as cleanup, set extensions, texture replacement, just like that? How much can you bring that in? And that was the proof that it was very efficient.
It doesn't have to just be like a cartoonish end shot or a pack shot. It could actually be very much integrated in a real live action shot.
Yes, exactly.
I can see that you did a bunch of traditional compositing to bring like the paper elements back in, and then obviously produced a final image, and like you said, nailed it on version 1. Maybe you could show us the before and after. That'd be great.
Yep. That's the ungraded plate with no color transform viewing, straight.
Okay, so there's the plate.
Now we have the grade.
Okay. Again, still with the plate just graded.
Very moody. And then we have the final here.
Got it. All right, so there it is. PBR in a very real-world application. So thanks for doing that with us, Stefan. We do have more videos on the Flame Learning channel, as well as the other video that we're working on with you to actually do a deep dive on doing lighting and rendering. So if you guys want to check those out to learn more about Stefan and his work, please do. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.